Hello, everyone. Wow, that sounds loud. There we go. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Judy here of Dr. Judy WTF. And just a couple of things before we get right into the meat of the matter of our show. Damaging effects of narcissistic fathers on their children. And we're going to do a part one because I just know that there's going to be a part two. And so please do call in. This is a call-in show. Get on the couch and we will mind map your childhood wounds and how they impact you. And of course, how we are going to morph out of this psychological prison, as I like to refer to it. So just a couple of announcements. Please subscribe to our radio show and know that we do give free consultations, 15-minute consultations. Just ask for it and we will give you a free PDF copy of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. And for those of you who don't know, I also have a mind map video series. So if you don't like to do one-on-one treatment, therapy, you can always view the Mind Map video series, chock full of information and case studies and so on and so forth. So again, this is a call-in show, and I think we do have a call-in already. So you are on the couch with Dr. Judy. Hi, what's your name, please? I think the caller got dropped, but do call back. So our show tonight, damaging effects of narcissistic fathers on their children. And unfortunately, parental damage on children is epidemic. And these are silent wounds. These are the kinds of wounds that don't show up on the skin. If we're beaten, we could see that there are bruises, and there are forms of physical abuse, obviously, that show up. But this is mental abuse, and it's so subtle that a lot of times people will, in treatment, say to me something like, "Oh my God, I didn't know that that's why I have low self-esteem. Oh my God, I didn't know this is why I'm suicidal. Oh my God." So there's a lot of oh my Gods that I hear in the therapeutic office because people don't really connect the dots insofar as why they're not feeling well as a result of parenting gone wrong. So I'm going to outline the ideal, kind of the white picket fence parenting that makes for a healthy human psyche, and then we'll go from there and see how narcissism spins the system 180 degrees and puts children at the effect of life as opposed to being at the cause of life. And so starting with the mind map, thank you very much for putting it up there. If you can look at the first row, we have childhood wounds, which there are 5 of. Physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, there's emotional abuse, including verbal abuse. Then there is neglect and smothering. And the smothering can also include spoiling, which is a different way that narcissism is formed in children, and we're going to get into that as well. Now, last time we covered damaging effects of narcissistic mothers on their children, and ideally, fathers are supposed to be the mitigators of damages, and sometimes they're just not. So if we look at panel 1, and we've got a mother that's damaging to her children and a father that's damaging to her children, well, then we're in the double dungeon of darkness. And let me hear from my caller and see how this is affecting him or her. So hello, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy. What is your name, please? Can we hear? Hi, what's your name, please?
Hello?
Hello. You are on the air with Dr. Judy. What's your name, please? Hello, hello. Can you hear me okay? I think the connection is kind of off there. So just call back and feel free to ask questions. And again, we're talking about the damaging effects of narcissistic fathers on their children and then the ramifications of these effects on the adult of narcissistic parents and parenting, and particularly fathers. So I'm going to start by describing some of the aspects of a narcissistic father. So just in general, narcissistic fathers turn the conversation on themselves. So if you're talking about how great your grades are, then surely they will be talking about how wonderful their work is going, or how great their grades were, or what exemplary students they were. So this is damaging, obviously, because number one, you can't get a word in edgewise, and number two, you never feel really acknowledged by these people because they're always spinning it back upon themselves. Another aspect of a narcissistic father is that they do not meet your emotional needs because they're expecting you to meet their emotional needs. So you could see that this is 180 degrees turnaround from what is supposed to happen in parenting. So let's go back to John Bowlby, attachment theorist, Dr. John Bowlby, and his research on what it takes to form a healthy human psyche. And in order to form a healthy human psyche, the parents really do need to concentrate on putting the child first. So we'll try again with the caller. Hopefully we can hear him or her this time. And hello, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy. And what is your name, please?
My name's Andrea.
Hi, Andrea. Were you the person that was trying to call earlier?
I did.
Okay, I'm glad I can hear you really clearly. And so thank you for calling. Where are you from?
I'm from Manitoba.
Oh, really nice. Fellow Canadian. I am also from Canada. I grew up in Montreal, Canada, and stopped saying A really quickly because my classmates would make fun of me. So I don't know if they say A in Manitoba, but
All the time.
okay, so I might get back in the habit on this phone call. So tell me a little bit about what prompted you to pick up the phone and what you know about narcissistic fathers and the mind map and narcissism in general.
Well, my grandfather was a narcissist, and he was the father figure because my birth father had been killed.
Okay.
So he was, the acting father, and it was terrifying.
Yeah.
He wasn't like a subtle narcissist. He was a bully and violent and
Okay.
dominating. He just took up all the space.
And how old were you when your father was killed, did you say?
Yes, my father was a serviceman, so he was killed in war.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And so my mom was pregnant with me, and she had to leave her beautiful home and go, like she was living away in California, and she had to go back to the prairies because she felt she did. She chose to,
Okay. And so you were, let me just get my brain straight about this. You were not even born when your father died?
That's right.
Okay. And so your mother obviously felt that she needed a support system. So she went home to her father. Is your grandfather your mother's father?
Yes.
Okay. And was there a grandmother there as well?
Her mother, yes.
Okay.
And of course her grandmother, and it was an extended family, so we all lived all together, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like it would be ideally a great situation, but it doesn't sound like it turned out that way. So now you have a tyrant for a grandfather, and he's your father figure, yes. And then what about your grandmother? Is she mitigating any of the damages, or is she just kind of staying silent on the subjects?
My grandmother was very, very abused by my grandfather. So we had two sets of duplexes, and she was so kind and so gentle, but she was so bullied,
Okay. All right. So this is what often happens in these dynamics is we've got the strong, tyrannical, narcissistic father, and who does he pick to marry? usually somebody soft and sweet and maybe a little bit codependent, somebody that doesn't have much of a
she was an
voice.
orphan. She was an
Okay.
orphan at a very young age, raised by an 11-year-old brother.
Okay.
And when she was 1 year old, they were orphans. So I mean, it was horrible, for her. But
Yeah.
she was kind and gentle. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's no surprise that he picked somebody like her because she wasn't going to give him a problem, you see? Okay,
No.
and from her point of view, he was a step up from where she was coming from, and maybe had hopes that through her kindness, she could calm him down and change him. And I'm sure that happened, and I mean that very facetiously, right?
No, it didn't. No, that's what you said.
It didn't happen. Didn't happen.
No.
Didn't
He
think
was such
so.
a bully. Yeah.
Okay. So now that he is your main father figure, may I ask, Andrea, how old are you?
I'm 55.
And do you have a husband? Do you have children?
I have one child. I'm divorced.
Okay. And just curious, who did you pick as a husband? Did you pick more like your grandmother figure? Did you pick more like your grandfather figure? What kind of person did you pick? More like your mother?
He was actually a diagnosed malignant narcissist, but I didn't know it at the time.
Well, that is so common, and that's why I really want to expose this and psychoeducate people so that you could recognize the signs of narcissistic abuse. And I just also, with that said, I want to announce that one of my staff members, Yitz Epstein, is starting a group on Sunday in Sherman Oaks. So I know you're not exactly close to Sherman Oaks, California, but for those of you who are local, it is starting Sunday afternoon. Please inquire about it. And the subject is recovering from narcissistic abuse. And I see this as a huge epidemic, and people are starting to get smart on the matter. And so tell me a little bit about the impact on you. So one impact, obviously, is that you chose a tyrannical husband, correct?
I did.
Yeah, and you didn't even know it.
No.
When did his tyranny start
I
showing
thought he
up?
was so much better than my grandfather. You know what I mean? And he was so much better because he was so much smarter, and he knew how to feign empathy. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And
like my grandfather he didn't have any capacity to feign empathy. He was so blatant, so out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I was shocked. I was just shocked.
So I want to kind of explain it from a mind map perspective, because what happens with these tyrannical people is they were injured at the causal level as well. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
So your grandfather sounds like he was doing a lot of projecting, and he had no tolerance for feelings and no level of empathy, and therefore he had to create what is called a false self. Okay? And so from a mind map perspective, he had a hole in the soul. He had this false self, and in order to fill his hole in the soul, he had to use people. Some people eat sugar to get high. Some people use people to fill themselves up and get high. And so basically, this deficit created a turnaround in the system. Instead of concentrating and fulfilling your needs, it all got twisted into what his needs were. And this is subtle because I did a show many years ago on Covert Narcissism, and I want you to take a look at that episode, everyone, because there are different types of narcissism. Some are blatantly overt, and they love fancy cars and fancy homes and so on and so forth, and other people are covert. And so what they do, going back to your point, they will mimic what they think you need. So they'll study you, they'll shadow you, they'll understand that what you need is everything that you're blatantly telling them and subtly telling them, and they will feed that to you. And then once you're hooked, then they'll start They'll start their game. Okay, does that sound familiar?
Shockingly, actually, because it was just, I swear, I mean, it was as blatant as the day after we were married.
Wow, he didn't wait long.
Yeah.
Close the
It was like
deal and
that.
start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the shift it was so blatant. I remember just taking a double look at him like, what just happened? Like, it was just like, it's just like, where did you go? Like, where did, like, the romance or the kindness, or I don't know.
Well, it takes work to play out a false self. They have to recreate and think about what they're going to say and make sure that they have this look on their face of being empathetic and seem like they're listening and seem like they're concerned. But the act is tiresome. So once they have you where they want you to be, boom, then they can come on with the rest of it. So just back up for a minute and tell me, what do you think the impact of having a grandfather, a tyrannical grandfather, was like on your self-esteem, your sense of comfort in the world, and on and on? Let's talk a little bit about that. And particularly,
I think it had like the most profound effect, even more so than my mother. I mean,
Okay.
that's my feeling when you ask me. Yeah, I think it was devastating. I felt just raw all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, and I could never really feel safe about my feelings or my needs or anything that was precious to me. Like,
Yes.
he was so cruel.
And did your mother mitigate any of these damages? Did she step in, or was she too afraid to approach him as well?
My mom was a narcissist as well.
She was.
Diagnosed later. But, yeah, she was diagnosed as a narcissist and also bipolar.
Okay. So I'm imagining that some of the symptoms that you might be experiencing is emotional dysregulation. Is that something that would apply to you?
Yes.
Okay. The parents are supposed to regulate children's feelings, and when they don't, and they don't mirror and attune to and soothe the baby and meet baby's general good enough mothering and fathering needs, then a baby does not know how to attune to him or herself and does not know how to calm him or herself down. So it becomes a problem. Okay?
Yeah.
Becomes a big problem. And so, being that your ex-husband, how long were you married to him?
Short of a dozen years.
Okay, so being that your ex-husband was so good at, quote, meeting your needs initially and then not delivering on the needs, this is the game. Rope you in, get you addicted, sign the contract, seal the deal, and then do whatever you want. That's the deal, meaning the narcissist can then do whatever they want. And being that you were primed to be at the effect of two narcissists, let's just call that way in the double dungeon of darkness, because you had nobody to turn to. Okay. And so it must have been very, very lonely inside of you. Very lonely.
I'm still a very lonely person. Like,
Okay.
I've done a lot of work, a lot of personal work, but I still feel safest when I'm alone,
Well, then there's nobody there to hurt you. And I just, while you're on the phone, I just want to psychoeducate people in terms of what people feel when they're in a narcissistically injurious environment. So children of NPD parents blame themselves. Instead of blaming the parent, the child might take everything on as their own responsibility. They also feel invisible. Children may have no sense of themselves as what they want or need. Why? Because they have to defer their needs to their narcissistic father or mother. They become so acclimated to narcissism, they may either choose narcissistic relationships or avoid relationships entirely. Does that sound familiar?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the neglect, abuse, rage, lack of empathy, and emotional games can be so overwhelming that you just bow out of relationships and have a sense of insecure attachment. So you never securely attach because these people are not secure to attach to. And according to this article, William E. Krill Jr., narcissists breed codependency, caretaking, low self-esteem, guilt, or more narcissism. So can you see that it can turn one way or the other? Either people can identify with the aggressor and cut their heart out, also copycat off the narcissist and think, oh, well, this is a good deal. Why not, just join them? If I can't beat them, I'm just going to join them, and I'm just going to copycat their lack of empathy and copycat their using people and so on. Or they may go the other way and become major people pleasers. So I'm thinking,
a horrible people pleaser.
I thought
Horrible.
so.
Yeah,
Okay.
horrible.
Right. And the people who usually call into the show are the ones that are most at the effect of this, and that's because they've been so violated, they don't have a voice. They try very hard to turn the system around by being nice, and you know how far nice will get you with the narcissist.
Exactly.
They'll eat it up like popcorn, and then they'll empty out the bag, and then they'll crumble up the bag and throw it away, and guess who's the bag?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so mind mapping this, we have to make sure that several things are addressed in your case. Number one, you understand the pattern, you understand the game, you understand your defense mechanisms, which are now keep away from people, which will double seal your double dungeon of darkness because no light will come in. And so now you're going to be lonelier than ever. So your work, Andrea, okay, is to make sure that you identify the people that are nourishing and have light to give you. I'm skipping over to panel number 7 now. And panel 7 is a metaphor for interconnecting with people and determining whether it's a 1+1 phenomenon, which is you and that person create more than just who you are, or if that person is going to be vampiring you and draining your energy. Okay, so when you meet people, the last thing you want to do is let them in too quickly, and also you don't want to not let them in at all. So how about the concept of keeping them a little bit more on the outer circle, letting yourself get to know them, seeing them under different circumstances, see how they manage their emotions, see how they treat other people. And great indicators of good people are, how do they treat animals? How do they treat the waiter? How do they treat children? How do they treat their spouses and their friends and so on? And if you see that there's a low capacity for empathy, if you see that the person is themselves projecting a lot of anger and feelings onto other people, or in the case of covert narcissism, if you feel that they're displaying their nice false sense of self, and then that false sense of self then crumbles because they're empty shells inside and they have to keep feeding and they keep switching partners. That's a really good indicator of narcissism, is they're never satisfied. Okay, so just some more characteristics of narcissistic people. They brag, they sulk, they complain, they inappropriately tease, they're prone to addiction, they have a high need for attention, they become angry easily when their needs are not met. They feel that anything you can do, they can do better. Are you getting the flavor? I think
Very much so. Really helpful.
You've lived this. Okay, so
Yeah.
now what do is you first of all, you thank yourself for being out of that relationship. You learn about narcissism, this ugly game, the system gone wrong, and you work on yourself as much as you can so that you develop healthy boundaries and become a good pattern recognizer. I call it Think Like a Shrink. And by the way, please do contact me because you get a free copy of the Be the Cause PDF version of the book just because you called in. So definitely do that, and that'll be downloaded to you immediately, and then you can start
I will.
studying.
That's great. I have the book right in front of me, and I'm
Awesome.
really I'm amazed at how it's able to permeate kind of the fog that I've been in for all of these years. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, even though I was doing work and therapy, this somehow has touched me in a way that other things have not been able to penetrate.
Well, because I really get to the cause. When you're not dealing with just the symptoms. Today I talked to a woman who has a lot of OCD symptoms, and I told her I'm really not interested in the symptoms, not because I'm not interested in her pain, but I'm interested in the cause because the symptoms are just defense mechanisms shoring up the pain.
That you
Understood?
hit it exactly. I feel
Right.
like for all of my life, I've been dancing on the surface of this meaningless, kind of work, and now I'm finally at the point that it touches my heart so much.
I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing that. It means the world to me. And I did do a lot of traditional therapy because I didn't have a mind map all my life. This is only in the past many years that I've been using my mind map. I can't work without it. My team can't work without it. And then it just becomes this endless kind of therapy. And the therapy just can go on for years and years and years, and really nothing gets accomplished. So I thank you for your kind words and appreciation. And just stick with the system, deconstruct and reconstruct, decode your past, and then you will recode your future. And it is a process. And it's not an overnight process either, because we're always recoding. When let's say I have a piece of chocolate, I do love chocolate. I have some seized chocolate in my cabinet right now. I know that it's not the best thing for me to eat because it makes me itch. It really does, because it's inflammatory. So I'll have just a little of it. So I have to be careful how I code myself. So I want to have mangoes, and I want to have raspberries, and I want to have fresh food and so on, because everything that you think, everything that you eat, the people that you surround yourself with, these are packets of energy, right? And if you surround yourself with the right nutritional elements, you will evolve. And if you don't surround yourself with the right nutritional elements, you will devolve. And just as a sideline, I've been asked by people to do a show, and I think I will next year, on narcissistic friendships and when to end them. And
Please
I
do.
will,
Please do.
I will
Oh my
definitely.
gosh.
And it's interesting as I look at my lifespan, I think because of the work that I do, I've been less and less tolerant, obviously, of friendships that don't hold a lot of light and demean and devalue and destroy. And I just have a very low tolerance. I do understand where they're coming from, but there's a difference between being empathic and actually infecting yourself with people who hurt you. So please watch out for people who infect you. And even if you've made a mistake, let's say that you enter into a relationship or marry the wrong person, and then voila, you discover that they're demeaning, devaluing, destroying, destructive, addictive. Let's see what other qualities here. Vanity, spending money to impress others, an attitude that you owe them, threatening to abandon you above the law. I mean, I love these articles because they're just really right on with the characteristics of narcissism. If you detect this in the person, and one of my ways of choosing people is their ability to self-reflect and self-correct. Now, a narcissistically injured person has no great ability to do that. They will just finger point and blame Okay, so these are the diagnostics that you've got to look at. If you meet a new man, let's say, at some point in your life, and they're not taking responsibility for their own actions, not good. Just pass, move on. And if you thought that they were great and then you discover 3 months, 4 months, 6 months later, don't wait another 2 years or 5 years or 10 years to decide to let them go. And, I'm not saying that lightly. I'm not a big fan of divorce. But on the other hand, if the person can't work on their problems, then you can't be constantly infected by that person. My motto is don't dump the person, dump the problem. But if the person won't dump their own problem, you have to dump the person because then it's life injurious. So you don't want to.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does this help to clarify some of the experiences?
I can't even tell you how much it's helped. It's helped enormously.
Good.
Also, some of these I haven't gotten for. Hopefully, I'll find this in the book too. The things you're saying about the kind of red flags and to be cautious about.
Yes. And also, I don't mean to interrupt you. Go watch my episode on Covert Narcissism and some of the other shows because you will understand these red flags. And that's my purpose, is to teach people to think like a shrink, connect the dots, and be the cause of a better game of life. That's the deal. Okay, so just because you've been at the effect of this all your life, remember, you've been primed for the pump. You were raised to be food for the narcissist. And so now that you know that and see that, it's time for you to start pattern recognizing, okay?
Yes, I absolutely am, and I know I'll do it. I'm committed, and I'm really glad you gave me that metaphor, like about the histamine or whatever DOA reaction that you have with the chocolate, because I know that then it's an ongoing process. There's no there. It's not another 5 years and finally, I'll be safe to date. It's just that day to day I recognize my patterns and recognize patterns that I'm stepping into.
Yeah, don't wait. You deserve to have a clean life, and you could feel. If you're empathic yourself, especially if you're particularly an empath, you will feel people's energy. And if people are not healthy, I assure you, you'll get backaches around them. You'll get headaches around them. You might get a stomach ache around them. You might feel that your energy is being drained. And that's the vampiring effect that I refer to. So watch out for that and trust your gut on it, okay? And especially being the daughter of a narcissistic father figure, we'll call it in your case. You see, this is really a horrible blueprint that you got as a blueprint for a man. And what? Now you're supposed to serve the man? Now you're supposed to put your feelings as number two? Now you're supposed to live in fear and hope that you're pleasing this person is going to give you a better life? Well, it's never going to happen, okay?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah,
and I thought it was so much better. I really thought this was like heaven sent because it was so much better than the overt. But he was, like you used the word covert. It was so subtle. He was terribly smart. You know, a very successful politician and a social justice warrior. But
Interesting.
But very, very. Diagnosed as a malignant narcissist.
Okay.
Yeah, and it didn't. In his treatment for malignant narcissism, he became more violent at home.
Well, no one.
And more paranoid, more angry. Just he was raging.
Well, imagine poking at your defenses. And one day I'm going to do a show and invite everyone who thinks they might even have any feeling that they might be a narcissist on the show. And so that we could really discuss this as a system gone wrong, because people who suffer from narcissistic personality disorder and traits of narcissism have been injured at cause. Okay, and they're very embarrassed to expose their their underbelly, so to speak, because the defense mechanisms, the walls have come up very high, and usually the only reason they come to therapy is because their husbands and their wives are pretty much done with them, and they're sick of being demeaned, devalued, and destroyed. So there's a lot to talk about. And are you finished the book? Are you still in the process of reading?
Oh, no, I'm still in the process of reading it.
Okay.
I'm in the first quarter.
Okay. All right. So please be in touch, and you're welcome to call in for a free consultation. And if you need any help from any of the team members, just let us know, and we'll help you through this process. And I really, really appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an incredible game changer for me. It's just that much of a change already. I feel I'm already recognizing patterns. I'm already it's waking me up, so to speak. It's just it's waking me up.
Yeah.
All of a sudden things are making sense. I'm making connections, and I have a lot of hope that I can, and I'm already making change.
I'm so
less
happy
of a
to hear
people-pleaser
this.
already.
Great. And being a person who exercises their boundaries is going to get you better. Being a person who says no to abuse, and even subtle abuse, is going to make you stronger and will prove to yourself that you're not that people pleaser,
Worthless?
not the doormat. You have to. You have to
Yeah,
prove to
yeah.
yourself that you're not. So I'm very, very happy to hear that this has been a game changer for you. And do let me know how you're doing. And thank you so much for calling in.
I will. And I am going to be doing the 10 sessions. As soon as I finish this book, I'm going to get a hold of one of you therapists and apply to do the 10 sessions.
Okay,
or
that's
else I'm
awesome.
I'm going to get the video series, either one.
Yeah, the video
It's
series.
my gift to me.
I have a cool case study in there. I have my grandson, who was 4 at the time, breaking down the mind map.
I saw that video.
Was
that
so
was
cute.
awesome.
That one, but he does it in the mind map video series. He breaks down the mind map.
Cool.
And he's funny. I'll move on with my material. He's so funny. He says, "Grandma, I hate being in panel 6 with you. I think we're starting to get along now. I think we're going to panel 7 now."
Oh, that is a
so
hoot.
my point is that even children get it. That's how simple, because it's a system. And if the system isn't obvious, wounds of childhood, how they embed, how we trigger them, how we break down from them, and how to morph out. That's the new game of life. Okay.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
My pleasure,
Okay.
Andrea. Take care. Stay warm.
Okay.
Bye, Uggs.
Very much
Bye,
so.
Uggs.
Bye now.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. So I really love the fact that the audience, you listening, you are so psychoeducated. The comments that I get, the letters that I get, it's so obvious to me that you're learning and that you're beginning to think like a shrink. And sometimes I know that people go very far and they finger point like, he's a narcissist and she's a narcissist, and all the world can't be a narcissist. We do have, all of us, little bits of narcissistic tendencies and little bits of codependent aspects of ourselves. And I remember when I started studying psychology and I went to the DSM, I thought, oh my God, am I this? Am I that? And, people freak out when they start studying. And the truth is that we do have different aspects of ourselves, but that doesn't mean we have to exercise them. It does mean we have to exorcise them sometimes, but it doesn't mean that we have to live in that and project our pain or implode with our pain or numb our pain with drugs, sex, and rock and roll, as I like to put it. So just a little bit more on narcissistic fathers. Okay. Traits of a narcissistic father: lack of empathy, exploitation of others, excessive arrogance, obsessed with success and achievements, harbors belief that people are special and they only want to be around the special people, because if they're not around the special people, then they're not special. overly sensitive to criticism. So they can dish it out, but they sure can't take it. But because remember, they have a narcissistic shell around them, and if you poke at it, no, keep away. And if you do wound them, then it's hell and brimstones for you. They are unwilling to compromise with others because, of course, they're right. And if you get in a conversation with a person with these tendencies, you might find that they're not doing what parents are supposed to do for their children. If you're in a proper, normal, healthy conversation, you're ingesting what the person is saying, you're digesting what the person is saying, and then you're manifesting some kind of response. In the case of narcissism, they're not ingesting anything because they already know what they're going to say before they say it. There's no ingestion and digestion of the conversation. So, in other words, they lack the ability to take in. They lack the ability to take in that other person, because in their world they were already injured, and taking in another person is not a good idea because probably their parents had a system gone wrong too, and their experience with humans wasn't so great either. So if there are any other people out there who would like to call in, please do. 323-843-2826. We're talking about damaging effects of narcissistic fathers on their children. And just a little bit more information, and this is another topic that people have been requesting. What happens to children after a divorce when one of the parents is a narcissist? Well, that's not a good story either, because let me read you a little bit about this article. I like to give credit where credit is due. This is the article, A Narcissistic Father During and After Divorce by Lisa Thompson. And so, a daughter's experience with a narcissistic father after a divorce. Okay, so the toxic narcissist can be and knows how to transfer these narcissistic supplies to friends and children. So basically, when the father's going through a divorce, they might suck the lifeblood out of their own child because they're low in supply. So it's not a good place for the child to be. The conversation left the young woman feeling ugly and stupid. And so this is what I mean by projecting. So if the father's not feeling too good about himself, then it's easier for him to make his daughter feel horrible about herself. So here's the story about a young woman whose father was really, really quite charming and fun, as long as she was a source of supply. But once the parents got divorced, the daughter probably had a split loyalty, one toward the mother and one toward the father. And guess what happened to her loyalty toward her mother? Well, she got punished for that. So the parent can quickly turn the attention to neglect and abuse once they cease to be the primary parent, and they can use the child as a flying monkey. This is a very popular tactic also. They can use the child as a flying monkey against the other parent. So it's a horrible dynamic to be in, and especially if you're a daughter and you're required to worship your father. What are you in training to be? You're in training to be a doormat. And Andrea, you know this because you've lived it. You're in training. So another relationship gone wrong. In the case of a father and a son, usually what happens is one child becomes the golden child, and the child that becomes the golden child is the child that might look like the father or might have qualities similar to the father. So he might take that child and put him up on a pedestal and then use the other children to demean and devalue and destroy them. And so the splintering becomes very apparent in families. And so things get polarized. Oh, you're like me. I want you to be against your mother. Your mother's a horrible person. I can't tell you how many times in my practice I find parent alienation syndrome, where one parent is alienating the other parent against the child, and it's really, really sad, because these children are then used as pawns. They don't get to feel their authentic feelings. They have to feel what the parents tell them to feel and think what the parents tell them to feel. And so there goes their authenticity and their self-expression. So I think we do have time for another call-in or two. And again, please call in. I know that from my experience working with adults of narcissistic fathers, it's really, really sad, because oftentimes they will be in the service of that parent for many, many years. And as a result, they will be pretty much their father's psychological slave, if you will. And as they become indebted and in servitude to their father, they will expect a level of fairness, and they will expect, obviously, love in return. And they might expect inheritance in return, and they will expect some level of appreciation. It doesn't come. I think we do have another call-in. So, hi, you are on the couch with Dr. Judy. And who's this, please?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You're on the couch with Dr. Judy. Who's this, please?
This is Jennifer Lowry.
Oh, hi, Jennifer. How you doing? Thank you for calling in.
I'm doing well. Yes. I'm excited to talk with you. I spoke with you actually briefly just the other day, or actually today, and I'm going through a very fresh 2-month divorce.
Yes.
And, I've been discarded, if you will.
Sure.
18 years, and I have 2 teenage daughters, 14 and 16. One looks and acts a lot like me and is being very rebellious towards her father right now, which is eye-opening, and it's not doing her any good, because he is very angered and enraged with her instead of me now. On the flip, I've got the other younger who is a people pleaser and is the golden child, I believe, for him to come, because she looks a lot like him, and she wants to just be the peacekeeper. And so I think my bigger concern is with her right now, because she is being, as you'd say, kind of the doormat, or maybe even being pulled back and forth. I'm choosing to kind of step back and observe and not put too much opinion, but she's very enraged with me, rather. Every time she sees her dad act enraged, she's kind of acting out on me, rather.
Okay, I want to tell you something about that dynamic. Usually the child will act out on the safer parent. You see, they can't really self-express to daddy dearest, because daddy is dangerous, and daddy will demean, devalue, and destroy, and maybe reject. So she's got to kiss his you-know-what, and that will mean that you're going to be thrown under the bus, and it's not a very happy feeling for you. But she does not. Children do not want to break the bond. They'll do anything to keep the bond. So just recognize that to be so. And I have a little inside information in that I know that you have my Mind Map video series, and you're going to watch this with your family. I just like, what is this, happy hour or something? I mean, people usually watch, holiday Christmas video watching. Okay. But I think the best thing we could do for our children is psychoeducate them. And I'm a big principles over people. And rather than tell them that their father is bad, or that you're good, or that you're bad, you just ask them what they think of this and that, and have an open discussion and help them understand the system gone wrong. And I think the most important thing that you could do is own your own stuff, because when you own your own stuff, your children begin to own their own stuff, hopefully. You're role modeling that.
Mm-hmm.
And so just understand this is not personal. He's threatening the bond.
Yeah.
I bet you're not. That's my guess. You're not threatening the
No,
bond.
no, I'm not. I'm not. And it's just they're at that age where I know they already see it for what it is, and they've been very fortunate. I think that in one respect, because he kind of abandoned them. Like, he has never really been truly present.
Yeah.
So I've been a really big dynamic in their life.
Yeah.
So they've been very opinionated, good and bad, but they're expressing, and they always have. So just seeing this right now happen, I don't mind being a little bit of a punching bag, but at the same time trying to hold my boundary with them too. Like, okay, you hit me once, hit me twice. You're disrespecting me now. And, I do speak calmly to it, and they do have some consequences, but it's with true empathy when I'm doing it. So,
I wanted to suggest to teach them the peaceful healing dialogue, because the peaceful healing dialogue isn't about speaking words of wine and roses and peace. It's a way to really self-express without killing off the relationship. And the peaceful healing dialogue starts with, honey, can I have permission to talk to you? And then if they don't want to talk, then you find another time. If they do want to talk, you talk to them and say, the other day when you said blah, 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 it really hurt my feelings. And then let them say.
it's not in the moment.
Right.
I've noticed that very much, where they need their own space, and I want to honor and respect that. And I also see them acting, and maybe it's because my eyes are opening up more to it, where I see they have some of those traits, but they're also teenagers of, traits of
Absolutely.
his. I know they're teenagers, so it's totally normal too. So I'm just like, I hope I have to believe I caught this at the right time, that they can see for themselves, and that we're all in a good place to learn from it and grow, break those chains, so to speak.
Break the chains. Speaking of breaking the chains, if you look at panel number 3 as a metaphor for toxic marriage, the bonds between a husband and wife, and if those bonds are not healthy bonds, then they will not be sustainable, and they will break into chaos. So whenever there's a divorce, there's chaos, there's a lot of toxicity in the air, and everyone has to settle down, and things are flying off the handle, so to speak. So also give it time for the dust to settle. And then people pick their defense mechanisms. I don't know what your daughter's defense mechanisms are, but you can talk to them about when people are in pain. They might smoke more, they might eat more, they might watch more videos, or, whatever they're doing, and explain. Instagram. Yeah, no kidding.
Instagram.
Right. Exactly. So I think the best thing that everyone can do is psychoeducate their children and give them a safe space to come to you and say anything. It's just that they have to say it with a certain elegance. And that's why the peaceful healing dialogue, which, by the way, is up on my website, drjudywtf.com, or psychologicalhealingcenter.com, which is a mouthful, I know. And if you go to the forms section, you can just pull it down from there. And it's just a handy thing to have around, especially when you become reactive and explosive, because it's really easy to not use any peaceful healing, anything, when you're in the moment and activated. So it's something that you have to ground yourself with. Okay.
I'm definitely learning to do more of the responding versus reacting. That's been huge for me too, just because of, even in the midst of waking up, the PTSD, where I, was just, all over the map, if you will, chaos. But I'm curious about recommendations for, seeking out mentors or father-type figures for the girls. They don't have grandparents, and, now their father isn't maybe the best model, at least right now. And I don't know if ever, but we can only hope. But what teachers, reaching out to, I'm just trying to figure out where to go.
Do you belong to any organizations, whether it be religious affiliation or any kind of organization or
Ironically,
sports?
you say that we actually missed a teen life evening in which there is a director that's a gentleman, and we've been kind of talking about that, and they're a bit turned off, but they're teenagers. They're turned off about everything that I recommend.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of a creative idea. Sometimes if she has a girlfriend, let's say, and that girlfriend has a pretty healthy mom and dad, maybe that those parents, maybe she knows
Yes.
other parents that have been together and are healthy and can lend another perspective. Sometimes children will borrow other people to finish their developmental stage, and I think that I think health begets health. So once they're on the healthy path, they're going to reach out for healthy people. So, we have to trust a little bit that, and then she might actually feel guilty to reach out to another male figure because she might feel that she's betraying her father. But you might want to explain to her that it's okay. There are other men on the planet that are good, healthy people, and maybe a therapist, a healthy, solid therapist or support group or divorce support group. Something like that. That's my thought. Okay.
And we did just start them, on with a therapist, and he's a gentleman. And in fact, forget ironic, I should have known better that my to-be ex reached out to the therapist prior to their meeting for individual therapy and had his own personal consultation. And let's just say the family session was very uncomfortable, in which the therapist, I'm not saying he agreed with the ex, but he definitely was very extra respectful to him. So I'm hoping that maybe he's already seeing what's going on, and I just need to sit tight and see how it unveils itself.
Well, they definitely. I know the show will be over. I don't even think we have time for the Shrink That Tune, which you can refer to, because I know Heather, my song picker, is going to post it, and the one that I chose was Liar, because really we buy into all of these so-called truths, and it's a song by Roland's band. And it is called Liar, and really people buy in because parents are supposed to be gods. They're supposed to be truth tellers, not always. So I think, first of all, if your ex-husband is going to the same therapist as your children, it might not be a great idea. Maybe they just want to have their own therapist, because then it's going to be contaminated. Understood? I would recommend that.
Exactly. Agreed.
So I know the show is almost over, so please be in touch. I know you are in touch, and I know that you're actively involved. So thank you so much for listening, and let me know how your family likes the video and what they gain from it, okay?
I will. I will, absolutely. Okay, take care.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Lisa. Take care.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. And obviously, there are a lot of people out there that have lived this dynamic. Some people go in one direction. They go more toward the people-pleasing end. Some people identify with the aggressor and shut down and become hardened. And whatever you're experiencing, I invite you to start learning, psychoeducating yourself, thinking like a shrink, and please do request a free consultation. You get a free PDF copy of the book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, which will break down all of the panels, the wounds of childhood, how you've been encoded with them, and then you can look at how you can decode yourself from all of this psychological imprisonment. So thank you for joining in, and we're going to do Effects of Narcissistic Fathers on Their Children, Part 2 next week. Have a good evening.